the morally bankrupt, self-serving Tories can find monies for wars, but not to offer free school meals. They can find millions for ineffective PPE, but not for pensions. They can arm Israel, but not to build social housing. And what about the party that took its name for the Labour movement? Rebranded to appeal to the right, Keir has betrayed all of us who had hoped for a real opposition rooted in socialist values and which championed the interests of the working classes. Under Keir, we've seen the Labour Party retreating on its pledges to renationalise key institutions, including the NHS, breaking their promises to students in Selly Oak on abolishing tuition fees, betraying our workers, our striking workers, by telling Labour MPs not to join picket lines. Keir can't care less about Labour values and equally cares less about asylum rights and human rights. Keir's assertion that Israel had a right to shut off essential services such as water and electricity to the Palestinian starkly contradicts all tenets of international human rights. We need a different kind of politics, one which is rooted in principles and serves the interests of the people. And we are grateful that Kamil has risen to that challenge in Selly Oak. Whilst Kamil's campaign has been years in the making, it is something that we have longed for, and over the last few months we are beginning to realise that. Kamil has dedicated his last 30 years to educating thousands of engineers and scientists in the UK and the world. His students have literally been building bridges and infrastructure around the world. On a personal level, Kamil has built metaphorical bridges by dedicating his time to fight for oppressed people, including the Palestinians, his own people. Until recently, Kamil was the chair of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, and under his chairship, we have seen the PSC grow almost fourfold and become successful. He is well-driven, hard-working and principled, and we are sure that with a great team of campaigners, we can unseat Steve McCarb, our MP. He is the chair of Labour Friends of Israel and a defender of Israel's occupation. Kamil will serve the interests of the people and not a party. So I welcome Kamil today to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. for that really rich introduction, because you summarized the background as to why I decided that I would stand. You talked about my career going back 30 years in terms of thinking about standing, but in fact, I came to the UK at the age of 15. I was put on a jumbo jet on my own and was sent to get an education. Little did I think that I would now be standing here announcing that I'll be standing for Parliament. So that is actually a wonderful story to tell. And for youngsters and everyone in communities that may feel, I don't know what the future can hold for me, well, please work hard, be dedicated, be principled, and one day you will be able to achieve what you had striven for. In my case, I never thought I would be standing for Parliament, so it's even more important than that. I am a British Jordanian of Palestinian origin. That's important in terms of saying where I come from. I was born in Saudi Arabia, and so I've had a really rich upbringing and been involved in a number of countries and have worked with people from all walks of life. I did my university education in Manchester, so that's a really fun place for me. But throughout that, and I remember when I first came to school, the miners' strikes. I remember Margaret Thatcher, how she dealt with the unions. But again, I was here to get an education and go home. But now this is all part of the background that has brought me to where I am. Teaching at the university where I teach, Russell Group University of Birmingham, is something I'm very proud of. And yes, I have taught thousands of students. And I don't forget the calls from past students, particularly from early on. I had a call last year from a student from 1994 who said, I am now managing the metro extension from right up to Mary Hill. And so that's where some of my students have ended up, and talking to them is always absolutely wonderful. Another one was going to be here today, but unfortunately he's working in Wales for his company, so he couldn't. But that's all part of the background. In terms of politics, I have always been very conscious of human rights, of equality, of the fact that people sometimes in their life need some help, and that we shouldn't be shy about saying that it may need to come from the taxpayer, from the government, from us. I also think that everyone should be able to strive to be the best they can be. And that is where it all starts, and that's what certainly I have taught my children to be. Last year changed everything. When I woke up on the 7th of October, and I want to acknowledge that atrocities were committed on the 7th of October. It wasn't just one side that, if you like, attacked civilians. It was civilians were certainly attacked, and that's something that is against international law and something I cannot stand for. But at the same time, that was on just one day. Israel has been bombing Gaza for nearly, what is it now, 200, and I've lost count, as I'm sure you have, of how many days it is. And I want to be clear, nothing justifies the slaughter of children that Israel embarked on after that. So that's where things began to change for me. I, as chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, was on the streets, holding the banner with great people who came to support us, walking different places that the police allowed us to march. And even that, I was angered to see that the government here would not change its stance 1 inch in supporting Israel, which was committing war crimes. The simple sort of, move from North Gaza to the middle of Gaza, move from middle of Gaza to Rafah, and now move out, we want to go and attack Rafah. To think of Palestinians in that way, the dehumanization and the normalization of the slaughter of Palestinians really, really angered me. So I went on the marches, but then Sophia Starmer one day said that Israel had the right to impose a siege and to cut water and electricity off. And as someone from Palestinian origin, it was impossible for me to remain in such a party. So I resigned and I issued a letter which people welcomed, and I had lots of calls saying you did the right thing. Some said, why didn't you stay inside and fight? Forget it. The Labour Party is a lost case, quite frankly, under Keir Starmer. And I'll remind you, he's somebody who has reneged on his 10 commitments. If you make a pledge, 1, you stick to it. If you make 10 and then ditch them, then what the heck are you doing? And since then, of course, he has even ditched the climate and environment pledge. So it's a history of actually just looking for ways to be elected. What do I say that will help me be elected? Never mind principles. And one of the other reasons I resigned from the Labour Party was that Keir had refused to meet the Palestinian community for the past, ever since he was elected. So That led to one phone call from a couple of friends who said, we're thinking of setting up a party and would you like to come and talk to us? And I went and talked. And that is where Reliance was born, a conversation between, from memory, about 5 people who felt we've got to do something different. And so I will say something about Reliance first and then move on to talking about Serial. The whole idea of Reliance is that the whip, for those of you who don't know what the whip is in Parliament, is a horrendous constraint on MPs being able to speak their mind, to speak their conscience, and to represent their constituents. And so the first thing we agreed when we were talking about the party was that there would be no whip, which means that we would be able to bring independent MPs, people who may have left the Labour Party, may have left the Conservative Party, bring them together but not people like Natalie Elphicke, by the way, who's the person who's moved to the Labour Party, who was accepted with embraces, when she's a really inappropriate person to be representing decent people, frankly. So that was the starting point. We need a party that is not going to have the whip. People will be truly representative of their constituents, and that's the most important thing. When I contact my absolutely awful MP in Northfield, who is a Conservative MP, he never replies. And I've picked up that the guy who sits in Serial isn't any better. He never replies. And in fact, particularly when he is someone in the position that I will allude to, it is clear that that is absolutely wrong. So the point about having a party was to start with that there's no whip, that it will look at policies that people need. We are going through a cost of living crisis. Housing is in dire straits for people with no prospect of it improving. I know lots of young people who will never own a house if we continue as we are. I'm very lucky. My 2 eldest sons have bought houses, but I think they're very lucky. They're going to be of the last generation which feels that they can do that. But social housing, meeting the needs of people to have a roof over their head, is so important that it needs to be addressed. The NHS, and as soon as I say that, people sigh, because they know that they're not getting appointments, they're not getting the treatment that they need and deserve. But equally importantly is the fact that the workers in the NHS, in education, are not being paid fairly. It really is about trying to address some of the policies that are needed for people to feel that the government is listening to them, that the person who is representing them in the constituency is not only listening, but when it comes to voting, they don't wait for the call from the whip's office to tell them which way to vote. Students, I am an academic. To think of the debt people are finishing their university education with is just horrendous. It's another mortgage, and it is there's no acknowledgement, in my view, by businesses who take them, that they should have invested partly in that through taxation and other means. So it's really important that we focus on abolishing tuition fees. That is something that really needs to happen, and to encourage people in, and as we can, even to see for certain students and beyond, reintroducing some grants to help them survive as they go through education. Because basically, where that is not happening, they're having to take out more loans, get into more debt. When we need people, to go to continue their education, but then to contribute to the development of the economy. And that is where even the woman who was outlasted by a lettuce destroyed the economy, didn't she? On the premise that she wanted to grow it. The economy needs to grow, but not in the way that the current government is working on. Selly is a really important constituency here in Birmingham because of the diverse range of people who live in it, ranging from students to residents who've been here for some time, But like all the other constituencies in Birmingham, we are facing horrendous cuts in services from Birmingham City Council because of the failure of it to control its budget, but also due to government cuts. So I am someone who will fight these cuts because it is so important that we have the services that we need. And how do we pay for it will be a question that is asked. Well, people with the broadest shoulders should be able to pick up and support those who can't until they are. Until they are able to contribute. I think protecting pensioners and the triple lock that they have is really important. But also people who need welfare until they are able to stand on their 2 feet and contribute and pay taxes is also very important. Immigration, what a mess. What an absolute mess. A demonization of immigrants and asylum seekers. No solution that seems to respect the dignity of people who come and escape war, but people dreaming. Do you remember Suella Braverman? About the first flight to Rwanda, she said, I am dreaming of the day when that happens. She is thankfully not in a position where she can implement that, but there is a need for immigration to be thought through with our partners, with the UK committing to the international law aspects that relate to immigration, to ensure that we're doing what we can to support people. That is absolutely important. And when we talk about international law, it should be applied everywhere. It should be applied consistently. And I don't have to tell you, I see the nods here, it isn't. Because there are countries that feel above the law, and there is no doubt that Israel believes it is. And there are countries saying, well, if Israel can get away with it, why don't we? We can try our luck, which is, again, absolutely horrendous. So international law must be applied equally. I will, in the Palestine policy that we adopt in Reliance, there's one, I'm calling for sanctions on Israel, for its leaders to be brought in front of the International Criminal Court, whether Boris Johnson likes it or not. Because I will remind you, Boris wrote a letter. Now, this was the other Friends of Israel, the conservative Friends of Israel, sought a letter from him to say the UK does not support the International Criminal Court bringing Israeli leaders to The Hague. And he said the reason was twofold. One, Israel is not a member, and two, Palestine is not a state. Let's take the second one first. There was a motion in Parliament which was passed calling on the next government to recognize Palestine. That was in 2014, I believe, or 12. So Boris could have just said, we will recognize Palestine, we are for international law, and we will support the ICC in bringing Israeli leaders to The Hague. So the application of international law has to be absolutely consistent, and nobody should be above the law, whoever they are. So I hope that gives you an idea of the breadth of policies that we will have, and we have in Reliance. There is no doubt the trigger was what was happening in Gaza, and we will continue to advocate for the rights of the people in Gaza, for the children to be spared any more trauma, because they are all trauma. Imagine a whole population traumatized, and that is what is happening in Gaza. And we will work hard to make sure Israel does not expel the Palestinians from Gaza. That's another issue. And so I finish on our plans for Reliance beyond today. So we are actively seeking, and we are talking to potential candidates to stand in different parts of England. I say that just to talk about the geography we're working in. and we are in touch with different groups and different independent candidates who may wish to join us as well. But we will be announcing a batch of people standing in the not too distant future. It's coming up very soon. But we wanted this to be a launch to talk about the party and to talk about Salio. And I'm looking forward to a battle with Steve McCabe, who claims he doesn't know me. Okay, he says he doesn't know Professor Hawash. Well, let me tell you two things. Do you believe that he doesn't know the name of the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign? No. This is the chair of Labour Friends of Israel, who is in touch regularly with agencies who will supply him with the name if he needs it. But secondly, I actually bumped into Steve McCabe once at the Labour Party conference. And we talked for a short period. And I gave him my card with my number. And I said, let's have a coffee. So to claim he doesn't know who I am is very disingenuous. He should have picked me up on the offer and learnt more about the Palestinian side rather than the lies he gets on a regular basis from the Israeli side. So I want to thank you very much indeed for coming today. It is a really important day, certainly for me. It is for us in Reliance, and we look forward to momentum really picking up over the next few days and weeks. We have a website which is either just about going live or has gone live, and you'll be able to visit that. And I'll finish by saying, please, if you can support us financially as well, you know that elections are not free and they're not cheap. So please support us, but I'm more than happy now to take any questions that the journalists have in particular. Thank you.
So thank you. Are there any questions?
I very much welcome this Kamel standing so that we have a powerful voice on the Palestinian issue on the political stage. And just one suggestion, I think brothers and sisters here are involved in unions. Some of the unions are not affiliated to the Labour Party. We should try to get platforms for him in those unions, and even in some cases affiliated bodies. One thing that really strikes me at the moment is this man, Joe Biden, is saying he's going to stop arms supplies to Israel. Now, is Keir Starmer saying that? You know, is he some sort of mad ultra left? You know, saying boycotting Israel when the Labour Party and Keir Starmer is backing it to the full? You know, this is extraordinary, and we should try to make something of that. But I've unfortunately got to go to the protest at Birmingham University. But congratulations on standing, and hopefully you would do well.
Thank you very much. So first to Stuart as he leaves us. First of all, yes, of course, we need to stop arming Israel, and we need to dismantle an apartheid regime. In my statement, I say I'm not talking about the people. So you've got the people and the political solution. No one is calling for anyone to be thrown out of historic Palestine, but the current regime must be dismantled, and one that, or ones, depending on the political solution, that can meet the aspirations that should come into play. But it is clear from what we hear that the legal advice to the Foreign Office is pushing in the direction of saying Israel is breaching international law, as if we don't think it is. And therefore the UK should not be supplying arms to Israel. And that trade should end completely. There's no doubt about that. In terms of Reliance and what we're proposing next, as I say, we're launching our social media outlets. We're launching our website. We have a conference coming up on Sunday with Assemble, where people can see, hear from us and from Assemble and others about what they expect to do. As you can see, there are independent candidates coming up to Birmingham. So we're working with people to spread the word and establish it. And then we will accept invitations from, again, Stuart left, but from trade unions and other groups. And we will be available on the media to, first of all, comment on issues, but also to set out our stall.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, Kamel. This is Josh Nico, freelance journalist. You've spoken very eloquently tonight about the whole range of issues that you're engaged with and that you want to raise. And Reliance as a movement is great graphics and organisation already in place. How are you planning to raise the profile of the movement and as it becomes a party? What sort of ways are you planning to put your message across locally and at a bigger national level?
So my message to the Arab voters in Birmingham, first and foremost, is go and register, and when it comes to it, vote, express an opinion. The whole point is we want to change this dynamic of people either thinking politics isn't for me, or those who've been failed by the existing parties to say, hang on a minute, this time I will think about a different party or an independent. It's really important that people express their views, because it's also for our children to learn about politics. And I know sometimes they bypass us, actually. Our children know a lot more about politics than us all these do. So that's my message to them. And of course, if they are in Selly Oak, there's only one person to vote for, and that's me. رسالتي للجالية العربية في برمنغهام، الرسالة للجالية العربية في برمنغهام هي أن يقوموا بالتسجيل وبالتصويت. حق التصويت مهم جدا، وبالذات بعضنا أتى من دول لم نستطع التصويت فيها، فمن المهم أن يكون لنا صوت هنا في بريطانيا. أرجو أن لا يصوتوا للأحزاب التقليدية، لأنها فعلا خانت مطالبهم إن كانت متعلقة بالدول العربية أو إن كانت متعلقة بموضوع القضية الفلسطينية. فرسالتي لهم أن يسجلوا، أن يصوتوا، وللجيل القادم أن ينخرط وأن يكون له دور في إن كان في البلديات أو في انتخابات العمد، حتى نرى من يمثل الجالية التي يأتون منها والأقليات الأخرى. والموضوع ليس فقط إذا أنا عربي أنا مهتم فقط بالعرب، بل هو النقطة هي ما هي الصفات التي نحتاجها لأن يكونوا فاعلين في المستقبل.
And thanks to Stuart for his support and all the comrades and brothers and sisters who continuously have supported us. How do we reach to the rest of the country? I think the system is broken. Anybody who follows politics would have recognized that sometimes an MP win on 20 or could win on 25% of the vote. Democracy itself is at danger, and that's how we reach to the rest of the country. Up and down the country, people feel not represented. Up and down the country, people feel underserved. So the fact this two-party system is a conspiracy against the voter. When you are presented with no choice but the conservative or the conservative right, you stay at home. How we reach to the rest of the country? By offering them a choice. We care. We care about the NHS. It's the definition of Britain, the NHS. Social housing. It's what made people, the generation of the 60s and the 50s, being able to contribute to the economy. That's what we will focus on. The health, the housing, and the education. Education is what builds the economy. Ultimately, if you have a healthy, housed, educated nation, their foreign policy will be good because they have all what they need. They can think and they can behave in such a way that is in solidarity with the rest of the world. That's what we are about, and that's what Reliance is about. As what we talk to the voter, it's the voter, we will offer them representation. Whether they are Arabs, Muslims, Christians, English, all voters are the same, and all voters are underrepresented, especially the working classes, the ethnic minorities. What unifies the working class in this country and the ethnic minorities is they are oppressed by the same people. And together we will work to remove that oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think on that note, can we thank Kamil again for rising to the challenge. We know this is just the start of the campaign. Many of us already have been picketing Stephen McCarb's offices, and now we are going to up that campaign, and with Kamil as our candidate, our chosen candidate. And as Fadel said, we need a different kind of politics, a politics of hope, a politics of unity, a politics for the working classes. And that's what we have on offer right now. So thank you so much for coming today. And if you want to join us, please leave your names at the back. We need people to join our campaign and to help us win Selly Oak for the people. Thank you.
Yeah. If it's okay, can we have a group photo before everyone leaves?